All right, my friends, today we are reading another one of the books that came from my grandparents' house. It's called Popcorn Party. Once, when you and I were no bigger than a maybe, there was a little old woman who lived in a tiny yellow cottage. Through the long, cold winter, she spent most of her time making rugs that had fancy designs. In the summer, she tended her vegetable garden and her pansy beds. She hardly ever went anywhere, and she didn't have much excitement. But one day, there came a very special day. It was the little old woman's 100th birthday, and she was going to celebrate. After breakfast, she went out to the vegetable garden behind her tiny yellow cottage and picked 4 golden pumpkins. "I'll take these to town," she said to herself, "and perhaps the grocer will let me trade them for some popcorn. Then I will ask some of the children this evening to help me celebrate my birthday, and we will pop the corn. But before I invite any of them, I must find out if the grocer will let me trade these for some popcorn," she said as she put the 4 golden pumpkins into her green wheelbarrow. The little old woman was very happy as she wheeled the pumpkins down the cobblestone street to the grocery store. The grocer was a kindly old man with bright blue eyes and a cheery smile. "And what can I do for you, little old woman?" he asked as she came in the door. "If you please, Mr. Grocer, I'd like to make a trade. These 4 pumpkins for a pound of popcorn." "A pound of popcorn!" he cried. "Why, 4 pumpkins are worth at least 5 pounds of popcorn." So the little old woman wheeled her 5 pounds of popcorn back along the cobblestone to her cottage and thought of all the fun she was going to have eating popcorn with her friends. When she reached home, she went about the neighborhood inviting the children to help her celebrate. All up and down the street, the boys and girls squealed with delight when the little old woman told them that she was going to have a popcorn birthday party. Each child promised to be at the tiny yellow cottage at 5 o'clock. Then the little old woman returned home and spent the rest of the day tidying up her cottage. Soon the children began arriving. James, Greg, and the Smith children were the first to knock on the little old woman's front door. Right behind them came Peggy, Sue, and the Carpenter twins, Patty and Peter. Then came the 3 Allen girls, the Walker boys, and all the others. It didn't take long before 20 children were crowded into the little old woman's front parlor. "Happy birthday to you," James Gregor began to sing. "Happy birthday to you," all the other children joined in. Thank you," replied the little old woman. Her face was all smiles as she seated her guests around the room. "Now perhaps you would like to play guessing games while I pop the corn," she said. "I see something in this room that is red and black and white, and it starts with the letter S," began Peggy Sue, thinking of the sampler which hung over the little old woman's fireplace. While the children were guessing what Peggy Sue could be thinking of, the little old woman held the big wire corn popper over the flames and shook it back and forth. Soon the corn hopped and skipped about, bursting into big white kernels. That smells good," said the little old woman to herself as she poured the popcorn into yellow bowls. But there was only enough popcorn to fill 6 bowls, and there were 20 children. Then the little old woman had an idea. Why not pop all the rest of the corn at once? That's it, she cried. That's just what I'll do. Then there will be enough for everyone without having to wait. So she poured the rest of the 5 pounds of corn into the popper, and she chuckled just to think what a smart little old woman she was. She went back to the fire and began shaking the popper back and forth, back and forth. Very soon the kernels began bursting into white, fluffy balls. Faster and faster the kernels popped and danced. Fuller and fuller became the corn popper until the lid burst open and the corn came jumping out into the fire. "Oh, gracious!" cried the little old woman. "What shall I do? What shall I do?" The corn was now flying about the room like a snowstorm. Forgetting all about the guessing game, the children hopped from their chairs and began running from the flying corn. Scrunch, scrunch went the popcorn under their feet as they scrambled from one spot to another. The little old woman was still holding the popper because she was bewildered that she didn't know what else to do. Chuckle pop swoosh went the popcorn as hundreds of kernels exploded and shot out of the popper at the same time. There was popcorn everywhere. Finally, the little old woman dropped the popper and waded in popcorn up to her ankles to reach the front door. "Oh me, oh my," she wailed when she and the children were safely outside. "What can I do? My tiny cottage will be filled to bursting with popcorn in just a short while." "We'll call the fire department. That's what we'll do," cried James Gregor. "Yes, that's what we'll do," shouted all the other children. "The firemen will put out the fire, and then the corn won't pop anymore." Soon the whistles screaming and screeching, the big red fire engine pulled up beside the little old woman's tiny yellow cottage. By this time, the white popcorn was even skipping out the open front door. The firemen had never seen such a sight. Everywhere was popcorn, popcorn, and more popcorn. They unwound their long hose and scrunching through the popcorn in their high rubber boots, they made their way into the house, finally put out the fire. James Gregor, Peggy Sue, and all the other children helped the firemen and the little old woman shovel the popcorn out of the tiny yellow cottage. But even with all this help, it took the little old woman 3 weeks and 2 days to make her cottage spick and span again, and she repeated over and over to herself that she would never, never make such a foolish mistake again. The end. Hope you all enjoyed the popcorn party.